Lights flickered, and I heard this really loud explosion, and the whole building shook.
This surveillance video shows the moment that factory exploded and that rattling aftershock. Officials say it happened around 9:30 Friday night. Cleaning crews had just left, but there were a handful of people inside. Daylight revealed the utter devastation. At least one person found dead, 2 more are missing, 4 have been hospitalized. The plant, 40 miles outside of Chicago, manufactured
pounds of the rocket fuel is held. If the chemicals exceed 716 degrees Fahrenheit, the entire area will combust. Then, the unforgettable.
Well, that destroyed everything. My God!
As the explosion erupts, a powerful shockwave careens across the landscape, and a car traveling along an adjacent highway is caught in the blast. Multicolored smoke and
A woman at a nursing home in Arlington Heights, Illinois, has had 57 fly maggots removed from her ear canal. The woman can't talk and suffers from Alzheimer's, but an expert said that the maggots had been in her ear for 2 to 3 days. Her family has decided to sue the nursing home for emotional distress and negligence. The nursing home where the woman was living claimed that they took action as soon as they noticed there was a problem. She had been to see a doctor 9 days before the maggots were found to get medication drops for an unrelated issue in her ear.
In a California electronics store, 1 minute a customer is in a back room picking out a TV. The next, his pocket explodes into sparks and flames.
He is screaming and yelling. All of his right leg was completely burnt.
It's the latest e-cigarette to explode in a long list of similar cases across the country. Experts saying most are caused by lithium-ion batteries often used in modified vape devices made overseas. A study showing 62% of explosions happen while the e-cigarette is in someone's pocket or actively being used.
I don't know if we're going to have rice on the menu or not. Maybe not. Thank you all for coming out again. A lot of familiar faces. My name's Stu O'Neill. Welcome to the 6th annual Thomas and Afer Claims Symposium. We have a very exciting agenda, and as you can tell, lots of things happen out there with your companies and your insureds. And I put those video clips together to really, and while I hope everyone has a very relaxing Memorial Day weekend, you never know what's going to be on your desk when you show up on Tuesday. So the agenda that we have will enable you to deal with circumstances like that may come across your desk Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe a year down the road. When something bad happens, something explodes, you have a client or a company that finds themselves in the news media with something as moving as maggots in someone's ear. The press is going to be on it, the public's going to be on it, and they're going to want to know, what do you have to say? So we're bringing someone in at the end, Keith Dorman from UGI, to talk about community relations. We're going to be talking about e-cigarettes. You know, we just saw the e-cigarette exploding in the poor gentleman's pocket. I'm sure that didn't feel too good. Fortunately, it doesn't look like it goes beyond his pocket. We have DJS to talk about surveillance. All of that was really put together through different types of surveillance video. And lastly, we're going to have Dr. Royer talk about concussions. I suspect the people in that car that was driving through that blast zone might have been rattled up and might have had a concussion. Couple things I want to touch on. We have restrooms out here. The men's room is in that corner. The ladies' room is over here. There are some restrooms downstairs. Before I introduce DJS, I want to recognize one of my partners, Katie Bavoso, who some of you may know. Katie, can you come up here?
Sure. You didn't tell me I had to go up front.
You're not shy though, are you?
I've never been blamed for being shy.
Katie was just elected to the Workers' Compensation, Director of the Workers' Compensation section of the Pennsylvania Bar last Wednesday?
Thursday.
Last Thursday. So she will be in charge of running the Workers' Compensation section of the Pennsylvania Bar for the coming year and planning their yearly meeting. Katie has hearings today, so she can't remain with us, but wanted Katie to come up and let you all know about her great achievement. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you for having me, Hugh. And as hopefully all of you also get our emails about our comp seminars, so we have our annual workers' comp seminar coming up in October this year. It's usually at the end of September, but I think this year it's October 18th, if I recall correctly, but you'll get an email about it. And enjoy the seminar. I know Hugh and others have worked very hard on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
So moving into our first piece, I want to introduce DJS Associates again. Some of you may remember from last year, Bob, the drone pilot Lynch. I am told that they have one-upped the drone from last year. Also with him is Lawrence Penn from DJS. Just a little segue into DJS. When I was very little, I remember going out to a site inspection with my dad with Dave Shore. And before we had all the technology and 3D, Dad's on the back of a motorcycle with a video camera recreating a motorcycle accident. So things have come a real long way. Certainly my contact with DJS goes back quite a few years. And I'll let Bob introduce his piece and his team, and we'll get into the program. Bob Lynch.
I'd like to introduce Lawrence. He's really the man behind the scenes for this entire presentation. Everything that you're going to see today is going to be more or less a direct result of bringing Lawrence on board. He, we essentially said, what can you do with this data? We have all this 3D data, we have, all the surveillance video, what can you do with it? And he's essentially created video games specific to each case. And we're going to go through one today where you can actually put yourself in the vantage point of the driver or pedestrians as they're within that environment. Essentially, we're going to get to this at the end, so we're going to make sure we leave enough time to it. We'll ask for some volunteers for more or less an immersive experience, is what we call it, where we're actually using virtual reality to portray what a driver can see. So we're going to get into that, but I did want to introduce Lawrence real quick. Like I said, he's the man behind the scenes. I'm just a pretty face to talk about it. I'm a goofy looking face to talk about it. But again, you got to be above 6 foot to work at DJS, so that's why we have us here talking about it. For those of you over here, you can move over here to. We won't bite, but I understand that you're having some issues with this screen, so we are going to be viewing everything on this screen. So if you guys don't have a good view, feel free to move over to the middle. Promise, I won't bite or spit. I just talk loud. That's all. I don't spray it. So again, I'm a principal collision reconstruction engineer at DJS Associates. Lawrence here is forensic scientist for the animation portion, and we're talking about analysis of surveillance video. And a lot of people are like, well, if you have surveillance video of an incident, why do you even need an expert to talk about it? You'll see for many examples, the portion that's captured is off in the distance, so there's some obstructions in the way. So we need to actually be able to recreate that, so then in the 3D environment, we can actually choose whatever vantage point we want to show what's going on. So we're going to go through just what the event is to we're going through a specific case example here. What we have is we have a UPS delivery truck traveling in Philadelphia, southbound, to make a right-hand turn to head westbound. And this is a pedestrian incident. The pedestrian's traveling northbound within this crosswalk. For Philadelphia and several other cities, we actually can get additional data than just using Google Earth. And Google Earth is a great source. You can get some historical aerial images. If you go on Google's website, you can actually get historical street view images as well. But for Philadelphia in particular, they have their own database of street view images and aerial images that we can access. And we can see what the conditions looked at different times, throughout the years. So this is a program called Atlas that Philadelphia has. Like I said, several other cities have it, but essentially it's another source for us to gather data. So we're just pointing to the area of impact. What you're looking at here would be approximate the vantage point for the UPS driver prior to making that right-hand turn. The pedestrian is walking towards us within that crosswalk. And again, this is just talking about more of the, you see the upper left portion of the screen says Atlas. That's the online free software, free database that if you guys ever have a Philly case, you can actually go on to. It's atlas.phila.gov, and you can use that to look at some historical street view and aerial images on top of what you can already get from Google. So again, this is looking. The pedestrian's coming towards us in this view. And here's one, we have two videos that we're analyzing. I need to kind of set this up because it's difficult to really understand unless I give you some background. The UPS truck is behind this column, okay? So what we have is the pedestrian is walking away from the camera. This is from within that atrium at the corner, but it's pointing out towards the street. So the pedestrian is walking away from the camera view, and you can see the truck just between the columns there. The truck is making a right-hand turn, and it does actually capture the impact, and we'll see that. But I needed to point that out to you just so you guys have a understanding of what you need to be looking for here. So it was rather quick, but we're going to see this video several other times with. Throughout the presentation.
Yeah, and it was actually an interesting case in that when I was looking at the video when we first received it, I was trying to determine where the pedestrian came from, and she actually walks away from this surveillance camera, crosses the street, gets to the opposite side of the street, for whatever reason, looks like she looks in her bag, and then starts walking back across the street, that she's going back in the direction that she just came from. So there was an interesting little quirk with the pedestrian.
Exactly, so that becomes an issue that we've identified and it needs to be addressed because is the driver expecting, he may have seen the pedestrian cross once, but is he expecting that pedestrian to cross back and continue back in the direction that she originally was heading? And this is our second video. Again, this is from looking behind the UPS truck. You'll see the UPS truck is up in this corner making a right-hand turn once we start playing the video. So you'll see the UPS truck up there at the top of the screen with the right turn signal on. It starts to move. It stops to allow pedestrians to cross, or at least slowing down. And there's the turn and the contact and the stop. So what do? We need to go to the site. We need to collect the data. Where are all these cameras coming from? This is what we're calling the front view. So from within that atrium, it's within this atrium here at 800. Is that Market Street? It's 800 something in Philly. Again, here's a picture of the camera. It's right in the center there on the wall. again, the pointer doesn't work on the screen, so that's why I'm pointing. But the camera is right there on the wall. So we need to identify that location so that we can actually camera match it within the 3D environment. Here's the rear view. Again, this is we're more or less from the street, but essentially this gives us the rear view. Is this is from that corner pointing towards the camera. So you'll see right here that camera is facing us. So that's why we see the back of the UPS video. So we have the data, we have the surveillance video. We need to start collecting data. So we need to actually have the 3D environment accurately mapped to be able to then place the vehicle, the pedestrian within that environment to get an accurate representation of what's going on. So we collect the scan data. So what we're doing is right here, this is our point cloud data. We have a 3D laser scanner that we're using to accurately document the locations between known features. And then once we have everything modeled in here, we know where the cameras are, we can put ourselves where those cameras are and actually get a camera match for the surveillance video. And here's where we're showing that what we're showing you in 3D is a true representation of that's just a photograph showing that what we're getting is we're not making this up. We're essentially collecting data and documenting things as is, as we do the inspection. We need to see the UPS truck. For this case, it was important to know what the driver could see. So we need to scan inside and out. Darker vehicles are a little bit difficult to sometimes pick up some features. So you see some holes in the side, but for all intents and purposes, we get an accurate representation. We really want to know what's inside the vehicle. We want to know if we put ourselves inside that vehicle, what can the driver see? And as you see here, we're just showing that what we're representing to you in 3D is true to its actual dimensions. So one other thing that we look at, for this case we couldn't do it at the time, is we want to know who was here last year for the drone talk. Anybody? Oh, great. So what we do is the FAA allows you to fly drones really without any issue if you're more than 5 miles away from an airport. That's the general radius. This was Philadelphia. This was within that 5 mile radius at the time we collected the data. Now what's going on is they're actually allowing, if you're not directly within the approach to runways, they're allowing you to actually, if you're only flying a couple hundred feet, you can actually fly in closer areas than that 5 mile radius. So you'll see, this is kind of those big circles, those 5 mile radius circles. If you get closer in there, you get some of these zeros that are in line with no fly zones. Then you'll get some other ones that are like, as long as you're below 500 feet, as long as you're below 200 feet, you can fly there. And for our purposes, we're typically below 200 feet for everything that we need to collect. Even if we're doing an intersection, we can get it below 200 feet, unless you're right next to the Comcast Center or something in Philly, then you have to go a little bit higher. But for all intents and purposes, we can get a lot more data now because we're allowed to fly within that 5 mile radius. At the time that we collected this data, we couldn't do it, so there's no drone data that's incorporated into this, but we got everything we needed from our terrestrial laser scanners. So now we're processing the data. These are just examples that, not specific to this case, but these better show what we're doing, because we already showed you the picture of the UPS truck. But essentially what we're doing is we collect, the laser just spits out millions of points a second, and it reflects back to the unit, and it figures out the distances from the unit to the object. We do one scan, and then we have to actually move the scanner to get multiple angles. And then once we have multiple angles, we can mesh them all together and get that accurate three-dimensional model of the vehicle. So here we're stitching all the corners of the vehicle together. and it comes together for one complete accurate 3D model. This is accurate to better than 1/4 of an inch, and actually that's just what the equipment says they're better than 1/4 inch, but we find that it's actually accurate to within only a couple millimeters, which is a 1/16 of an inch essentially. And the end product is, we have that model for the 3D point cloud. We can create these smooth surfaces and create an actual model of the vehicle that is true to the vehicle as it was at the time of the incident. This is more or less just reporting. We're confirming that when we go to a site, we're scanning different areas, and once we link it together, there might be some edges that are a little bit off. So the software itself may not be able to completely mesh it together. So we do one fit, and then we do a fine-tuned fit to actually make sure that everything lines up. And we get a representation of what that true accuracy is. So we clean the data. This is our version of cleaning the data. So that's if you ever need a cleaner, just let us know. We'll come and take care of it for you. But essentially what's going on is the laser scanner is just collecting whatever it sees. So if you're at an intersection and a vehicle travels through as you're scanning, you might have this big bus. In Philly, it's a big SEPTA bus that comes through. And you're essentially scanning the side of that SEPTA bus and you're missing what's behind it. The laser can't see through things. So we got to actually take those points out. We got to clean that scan to make sure we have something that is, we don't want to see all the parked cars, because we could put parked cars back in there, but you don't want to see the cars going through. So essentially what you have is, we do historical preservation, and this is for the Lincoln Memorial, where we did, I think, 50-some scans, maybe even more here, where essentially there are people walking through, but we're collecting data, and we're cleaning that data to make sure we remove all those imperfections just from people walking through. And you'll see that these are all just data points. They're simple points. This is not an image. This is individual points linked together that may appear to be an image. But that's what when we're talking about cleaning the data, we're not doing anything we're not altering it, we're just making sure it's easier to use for the analysis. And talking about the accuracy for the laser scanner, this is a case that we had where we were one of the first reconstruction firms to start using laser scanning equipment, and when we had a trial that they were asking about the accuracy of the laser scan equipment, and we brought this to it. The American Surveyor magazine that came out that month actually had a picture of the scanner in it, scanning national monuments. And the judge said, "It's good enough for American Surveyor. It's good enough for this courtroom." So it is a very accurate device that we use to get our measurements. So talking about drone, again, we this is more or less just background for stuff that we'll do. We'll make sure if we can use it in the area, we will collect drone data, because it provides, you can see the tops of vehicles, you can see the tops of buildings. It fills in the holes that you can't see from the ground, from the laser scanner. And this is essentially just, more or less, it allows us to capture more data to have a more complete three-dimensional model. So this is actually confirmation through combination. We're actually looking at differences between software packages that you input all the aerial images into the software package, and it puts together the model. We can actually create 3D models just from aerial images at different angles. And this is just showing that not all programs are equal, because the one on the left has much more clarity, and it's essentially inputting the exact same images. So the software you use matters. And we can see that there's just more detail with the hose, and you can't see it over here. So it is something that we have to be aware of. We are using the best software possible to allow us to get the data that we need for the analysis. Now, when we combine the two, this is, on the left, it doesn't look like a lot of data, but the left side is actually our scan data. The right side is the drone data. We can capture a lot more drone data, but it's not as accurate. It's still pretty accurate, but it's not as accurate as the laser scanner. But when you have very good coverage of the incident location, and then you can get the drone data to capture paths that the vehicles are traveling. If they're traveling 1,000 feet down the road, you can actually capture that to allow to show that path of the vehicle in the environment.
Yeah, when you first saw the scan data and the drone data side by side, it looked like the drone data had a lot more coverage, which it did. We got much more area. But as far as detail level, the LiDAR had about, I think it was just under 350 million points, and the drone data had a third of that. So it looked like it's a lot more robust with the drone. That's not actually the fact. So it's important to get the scan data also, because we get the accuracy from that, and that's what needs to be used when performing videogrammetry work and camera matching.
Yes, yeah. So we want to, like I said, we want to get the data, the scan data at the intersection or the point of interest, but if we need to show a vehicle traveling for a quarter mile down the road, we can still do that in the 3D environment. We don't have to scan for a quarter mile. We can actually use the drone images. I'm going to let Lawrence, we're going back to our case study here, and this is cool stuff. This is cool stuff that Lawrence does that really is taking this type of analysis to the next level.
Well, sorry if I sound a little bit out of breath. I think I need to get an intern to help set up the VR equipment next time, so still cooling down a little bit from that. So we're back to the case here with the front camera, and I'll let it play through, and it just shows a little bit of the process that one has to go through in order to perform the camera match to then go on to track the vehicles and the pedestrian. So here again is the accident with the UPS pulling forward, turning right, pedestrian unfortunately getting hit right there. So the first step is to correct, actually we'll place these red trackers on features in the environment, then we marry those to the actual point cloud scan data. And then through a process of lens calibration, we understood the video, and I'll just pause it here briefly. You can see how now there's these curved edges to the video frame, but the actual structural edges are now straightened out. So prior to the lens calibration, you see everything's kind of warped, it's really fisheye. So we can't really do anything with that video because it's not a true representation of the space captured in the video. So again, there's those trackers placed on various features, and it helps to undistort the lens. And now we go to a process of using the scan of the vehicle and placing it in the scan of the environment in our 3D software, and using this undistorted video footage, we can match the placement of the vehicle and the pedestrian accurately. Now in this case, we weren't able to then place trackers on the vehicle as we did the environment to let the software track the vehicle. This was more of a visual videogrammetry where we're manually placing the UPS vehicle to overlay the video frame. And again, that's because there's a lot of obstructions in the video frame, so the software doesn't like that, unfortunately. Moving on to the other view of the incident. Again, we go through the same process, placing trackers on various features, which you'll see in a moment with the red crosses, and then matching those points to a point from the LiDAR scan. And then the software just figures out the best fit. How can I fit all these trackers you place on the image within this 3D space, and it recreates this virtual camera. So again, there's a little bit of distortion in this video frame. So we go through the lens calibration process to straighten out all the edges, and now we can go into our software and again place the vehicle, the pedestrian in 3D space. And now we've got two angles to work with. So we shift the vehicle in this camera angle, then we confirm it in the other camera angle. Make sure that when we move it in this camera angle, it doesn't offset in the front view. With this camera match, we get error values, or the margin of error, so that we know all these trackers that we placed on the video frame and which are married to their positions in 3D space. When the software calculates the camera's location, it can tell us the amount of error, or the amount of deviation that point has to its actual physical point in the scan. So here, the tallest one you see here is about just over a third of a foot. And that's a far awning, so that's a feature that was pretty far in the distance, so that's why it's the highest error. But if we go to some of the features that are closer in the video frame, it drops to a tenth of a foot.
So this is not a very interesting slide, but this is something that we need for our own confirmation of what we're doing. How accurate is the placement of the vehicles within that environment? So this allows us to then say, here, we're accurate to 4 inches. We can place this vehicle to within 4 inches of where it actually was. And that's how accurate we're able to say. And that, again, that's just for one feature. Most of them are less than an inch or two. But it allows us to say, we've accurately recreated from the surveillance video and from our data, from our collection of data with the vehicle in the site, we can accurately place these vehicles where they are in that video. So now we can then use that to then see different vantage points that are of interest to us.
Right, and if we were able to go through the similar process with placing trackers on the vehicle and the video frame, then we're also able to get these error values for the object for every single frame of the video. Unfortunately for this case, that wasn't a possibility. This is another one where there's no obstructions that are blocking views of the vehicles, so we can track the vehicles through time and space pretty well.
I told Lars to put this one in there because I think this is the matrix video that I call. This is one of the coolest things that he's done for us with showing all what he's talking about with tracking vehicles. This really shows the engineering and math and science involved with this.
So it's a pretty high-speed collision. It happens pretty quick, so I gave you warning. So the light was red. The sedan driver didn't see it. So the distortion was pretty extreme on this one, and I had to actually go through a couple phases to remove any distortion and to start getting good results and low error values. So now you see the red trackers for the environment camera match, and now there's the green, and oops, sorry, went back too soon. The green trackers, here we go, bear with me. So the green trackers on tractor trailer, yellow trackers on the other vehicle. So now we've got these points, and then we match these points to the vehicle scans, which were documented, and of course the site scan. And here you can see the actual scans of the vehicles integrated into the scan of the site. So all this movement is based on videogrammetry through software. And we can view this accident scene from any angle that we want, now that we have this reconstruction. So we pulled the camera out from the view of that dash camera which captured the accident. And here you can see just the lines that are drawn through the image plane and out to their respective locations on the site scan, whether it be a utility pole or a sign.
That's the matrix part.
So where do we go with this data? So we kind of call it the 3 eyes of 3D. And the first one being illustrative. So we have this videogram tree data, and we bring it into our 3D animation software, and we model the roadway accurately based on the scan data, and we can show multiple views all synced up. So you can see the top view at the top, obviously. The camera matched views here, and we place the camera in the driver's view. And it seems like the driver should have seen the pedestrian based on this analysis. The next eye is interactive. So with a video, you can just hit the play button, pause it, scrub through. But we wanted to be able to move the driver to view the accident from their vantage point and move them in real time. So right now, of course, the reconstruction is paused, but we're just moving the interactive driver to see, how the view could have changed. Of course, we can move the eyesight up or down based on the driver's eye height, or possibly the seat. Some of the seats might be pneumatic, might go up or down. So then playing through the reconstruction now, and at the bottom we set up sort of the field of view where the green represents what the driver could see, and any gaps in that green space would be blind spots.
So the important thing with this video is the movement of both the pedestrian and the vehicle is defined by the data. All we're doing now is we're changing the vehicle. We're changing what where the driver is. If he moves forward, backwards, left, right, turns his head. We can control all that, which makes this interactive. So we have the motions of the vehicle defined, but what could the driver have done to see some things? And this is where this is essentially Lawrence has imported all this data into essentially a video gaming software package that allows us to use this to represent what the driver can see.
Right, yeah, this is using a game engine, but I'm not a gamer. I don't have time to play games. So this is all the data that we collected. It's not made up stuff. So going beyond illustrative, interactive, we then go on to immersive, which Bob had mentioned.
Yeah, so Lawrence is going to start setting this up. We still have about 10 minutes or so we wanted to leave a little bit of time. This is cutting edge. We don't know of anyone else that's doing this, and to be honest, we're still, we've used this for marketing purposes, and presentations, but, we've done this on this case after it closed. We haven't actually used it for an active case, but since we have everything defined, this is something that we can certainly use. So what you see here is Lawrence, it's an image of Lawrence moving his body. He's got the VR headset on and the hand motion. So you're not controlling the speed. Again, that's all defined. But you can control what you can see as that vehicle is moving through the environment. Question?
Yeah, Robert, it's obvious that this could be used and probably is used to determine fault or negligence and so forth, but I'm curious if you see your information also being used for safety improvements, etc. I mean, if you have a company with thousands of trucks on the road and you discover a blind spot when you're passing through pedestrian traffic, I mean, is that information being used for a positive purpose also like that?
Well, absolutely. Like I said, this is cutting edge for us, but it can absolutely be used as a training tool where we can reconstruct what actually happened, and then you can use it as a training tool to say, oh, look at the driver move forward and backwards. Septa calls it rock and roll. So you don't, you can see around the mirrors and the A-pillars. But yes, it can certainly be used for those tools too, where here's what was available to be seen by the driver. What could the driver have done differently? So yes, we do see that as a tool. We haven't explored that yet because, like I said, we're still cutting edge as far as we've just been able to incorporate this virtual reality capability.
It caused me to think. I mean, we've heard drivers many times say, "I didn't see the person." Well, and the employers will say, "What do you didn't see the person?"
Right.
Well, I mean, yeah, you could actually have evidence here which can prove they didn't see the person.
Right.
That's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's a whole nother topic. There's cases of look but failed to see. That's a phenomenon known for a lot of motorcycle crashes. Because drivers aren't expecting to see a motorcycle, so it may be within their field of view. As we know, it probably was, but they just fail to realize that the presence there. But similarly for this case, we have a pedestrian that had already crossed the street and decided to turn around and go backwards. Well, she still had the walk signal, but was there an issue where the driver may have seen that pedestrian, but you address and dismiss it because she's cleared at that point, but then she starts to walk backwards. The driver has a duty to look left, right, so that obviously provided an issue in this case where the driver failed to see her.
How about the view from the pedestrian?
Yes, so we can also do that. We haven't set it up. We have that view, but that's something we can certainly do too. A lot of times you have a pedestrian that's crossing the crosswalk. They're not looking behind them as a vehicle is turning, but you can certainly show any. Essentially, because we have all the data, we can show any image. So we can show up the view of the pedestrian as well. Yes, Pat.
So I'm from DJS too, and we gave this presentation a couple of weeks ago, and there was a lot of fleet managers for trucking companies, and they saw this as a great opportunity for prepping their drivers, before depositions, to say, okay, you said you look left, you said you look right. Actually put them back in the seat so that they can, if they're saying, oh, I looked left and I saw that there was no one there, but there was a tree there, you can kind of refresh their memory of, well, that's not going to fly. So a lot of people were seeing the use for something like this in training, in refreshing memories, in a lot of other instances.
Right. Yep. So, well,
that's discoverable. What you do to prepare for this deposition?
Yeah, so obviously,
a video from DJS.
Not yet.
We went to the game, DJS is gaming. We played video games. So at this point, I'd like to maybe one or two volunteers to try, as long as you don't get motion sickness. That's one side of that. Does anybody want to try this? It'll show. As Lawrence was showing you, what you're looking at as the vehicle's moving. Anyone want to volunteer? To take it? Come on up. Thank you. Your name, sir?
I'm Gary.
Gary, thank you, Gary. So Lawrence, get you set up here.
Is there a camera in the truck?
There was no camera inside this truck at the time. No drive cam or anything like that. No. So there wasn't anything. So that's something we would have used for this analysis.
You want to know what the driver reconstruction right now. If you reach out with the
correct, yeah. Where it's a good question up here about the drive cam. A lot of fleets will have a drive cam that not only faces out, but faces in, and that inward-facing camera can capture where the driver is actually looking at the time. So that's good, and we've analyzed a lot of those types of cases.
Right, so, we're not actually operating the vehicle because all that motion is set by the analysis. So the wheel, the accelerator, that's just to kind of get you immersed into the environment. But who knows, then maybe there will be a case that might need more interaction than that.
What did it feel like to hit somebody?
So again, you're not actually hitting the accelerator and steering because that's all defined, but this allows you to give it a representation of what the driver could have seen at the time. We have a couple more minutes. Any other volunteers that want to try it? No? The takers? Hugh, you want to try it? No?
I'm good, thank you. But I do have a question. The surveillance video that you obtained from the lobby.
Yes.
How quickly did you need to get out there? What was the retention time for the building?
So we're going to be honest with you. We don't capture a lot of the surveillance video. The investigators will do that, and typically that's within 30 days. You need to get out there and just save that video, however you can. We're on the back end. Hey, look, we got this surveillance video of the incident. What can you do with it? So yeah, from our experience, it's typically around 30 days, but it could be as much as or as little as just a week. We do know that we're starting to see in certain counties in Pennsylvania, PennDOT is starting to see their traffic cameras, where before they didn't see anything. They would really just use it to monitor traffic, backlog. But now, I think there's like a week-long program, maybe Cambridge County or something, but there's only 1 or 2 counties that actually have a pilot program that they're saving this traffic cam video for as much as a week. But again, yeah, there is that issue of, it's not going to be preserved after a certain length of time.
Is that what you're generally finding out in the field? Is it's 30 days that unless the investigator gets out there within those first month, it's gone?
Correct. So for a lot of your convenience store video or commercial video, it's just on a 30-day route. So if you don't go back into that system to look at the surveillance video to save it within that 30 days, it's just going to be overwritten. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you.